Should we begin, I think? Yeah.
Yeah, I think so, Ian. People can join us as we go, for sure. So anyway, so I will start with this process. So good evening, everyone. On behalf of the Ottawa Catholic School Board, I'd like to thank you for attending tonight's public consultation session for St. James and St. Anne Elementary School attendance boundary meeting. My name is Miro Valla, and I'm the Superintendent Planning and Facilities. We will start off our meeting with our line acknowledgement and prayer. Ian?
Thank you, Miro. Just waiting for, and here we go. We respectfully acknowledge that we are located on the ancestral, traditional, and unceded Indigenous territory of the Algonquin peoples, on whose territory we pray, learn, play, and work. I'm now going to pass it over to the Superintendent of Schools for St. James and St. Anne and the Associate Director of the Board, Mary Dunahee, for a prayer.
Thanks, Ian. During this Lenten season, we glorify the holy name of Jesus, whose love for us knows no bounds. We celebrate Jesus' willingness to become like us in all ways except sin, and we thank him for his absolute trust in his Abba, his Father, that sustained him even in the midst of his suffering and death. I'd ask you to join me in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Loving God, we ask for the grace to put on the mind of Christ so that love is the driving force that influences our every thought, word, and action. We are grateful that you have called us to continue Jesus' ministry of compassion and inclusiveness for your people. Instill in us the desire to follow Jesus always, and may we receive the courage to answer Jesus' invitation to love wholeheartedly and without reserve. We ask that you help us to embody Jesus' gentleness and peace in this world that needs your soothing touch. We ask that you will work through us to make Jesus' powerful presence so that others will not lose hope. Help us to be the people of prayer so we will become more and more like Jesus. We pray, God, that you will enable us to listen to the still, small voice within that longs to guide us in the ways of love and compassion. Jesus, we long to be people of justice, but sometimes we are afraid. Help us to stand up for those who have no voice and give us the strength to restore dignity and respect to all your people. We ask this in this holy name of Jesus. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thank you. So it's my pleasure now to introduce to you our school board representatives, starting with our local trustee in your zone, Sandra Moore. As Ian also noted, we have with us our Associate Director and Superintendent of Schools, Mary Donahue. We have our two principals here from St. James, Derek Rogers, and from St. Anne's, Joanne Blackburn. Ian Baxter, our Manager of Planning Facilities, along with Tony Marcon Stewart, our Planning Officer, will be making tonight's presentation.
Thank you, Miro. The meeting is being held tonight to provide information and hear from the two school communities and the larger public regarding a proposal to revise the attendance boundaries of St. Anne and St. James schools. We're excited about the addition to St. James and what the future will look like for students and families in the Bridlewood area. But we do understand that this longer-term plan for the community involves change and that this can be a challenging time. An important piece to convey, I think, is that we do not enter into these processes lightly. I think it is fair to say that we understand the impact that changes such as this have on homes, and where possible, we only move forward when a plan is in place that will provide long-term stability. Even though there are significant costs involved, the use of portable classrooms is preferred to ad hoc or reactive changes to attendance boundaries and the redirection of students. St. James School opened in 1993. St. Anne School then opened in 2000. Since that time, the only change to local elementary attendance boundaries implemented by the board is the creation of the option area in 2017. Should the proposed revision be approved by board in May, we'll work with those families affected and the schools involved to assist them with the transition. The format of tonight's meeting. As you're aware by now, in order to respect Ottawa Public Health guidelines around gatherings, we are holding this meeting virtually instead of in person at a local school. The format of tonight's meeting will be similar to one that would have taken place in a school setting. We will provide a PowerPoint presentation, which includes relevant background information and details respecting the proposal. This should take approximately 20 minutes this evening. After the presentation has concluded, we will move into a period where questions can be asked of staff and comments can be received. Please note that the meeting tonight is being broadcast live for those who wish to view it. We will also post a recording of the meeting on the study webpage for those who may not be able to access it this evening. We have all had a number of firsts during the course of this pandemic, and this is certainly the first virtual public meeting convened by the Planning and Facilities Department. I'll therefore ask in advance for your patience should some things not go perfectly smoothly tonight, although so far so good. Once we move into the Q&A period of the evening, if you would like to ask a question or make a comment, please use the raise hand icon located on your toolbar. You will then be placed in a queue, and the moderator of the meeting, Ms. Marcon-Stewart, will call on you specifically. You can then turn on your microphone and your camera and identify yourself to the group, along with your school affiliation. In order to ensure that everyone is able to provide their input this evening, we're going to limit speakers to 2 minutes, certainly at least during the first round of questions and comments. Again, in order to make sure that we have sufficient time to hear from everyone who would like to speak this evening. It was mentioned previously, but unless you are speaking at the time, please kindly keep your microphones muted and your cameras off. This will help keep the focus of the evening on those who are speaking or presenting. I think I will now pass everyone over to Ms. Marcon-Stewart, who will start the presentation. You may need to adjust your volume, possibly increase it, and you may also need to use your layout. There's a tool, at least in Google Meet, there's a tool that I think is called Spotlight, which may increase the resolution and use the whole screen for or show the presentation on the entirety of the screen. So with that, I think I will pass things on over to Ms. Marcon-Stewart, and we will view the presentation this evening. Thanks.
Welcome, and thank you for your interest in the public consultation for the St. James and St. Anne Schools proposed attendance boundary revision. St. Anne School is located at 500 Stonehaven Drive, and St. James School is located at 50 Stonehaven Drive. The two elementary schools are located approximately 2 kilometers from each other, and
It seems that we've got a bit of a technical glitch with the streaming.
Yeah, it's not sure what's happening. I'll try to share my screen again.
Yeah, I think everyone has shut off their cameras and microphones, so I don't think it's that. Tony, do you want to stop presenting and try it again?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. I'm glad I provided the caveat earlier in terms of technical difficulties.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's happening here, so we'll try this again.
Thanks for your patience, everyone. So I wonder if while Tony and our LT expert who was standing by, while we try to get that sorted, I wonder if I should maybe move into something that I was going to do after the presentation, but maybe just to keep things moving, maybe I will provide a bit of a summary of the input that we received to date. So we're 2 months in. Oh, sorry.
May I have 10 seconds? Tony, I suggest you to download that corresponding file just right now. Meanwhile, everyone is discussing other things. Please download that to your desktop. I'm an idea expert. So.
Yeah, no, thank you. I think that was one of the suggestions. Yeah, and I'm not sure how it's being played, but you're right. That was we discussed that earlier in the afternoon. So thank you for that, for sure. So I'll sort of continue while things are happening in the background. So we're 2 months. Let's try again.
Welcome, and thank you for your interest in the public consultation for the St. James and St. Anne Schools proposed attendance boundary revision. St. Anne School is located at 500 Stonehaven Drive, and St. James School is located at 50 Stonehaven Drive. The two elementary schools are located approximately 2 kilometers from each other and serve the entire Bridlewood community of Canada South for elementary instruction from junior kindergarten to grade 6. St. James School was opened in 1993 and St. Anne School opened in 2000. The Ottawa Catholic School Board is growing. A new school addition is coming to serve OCSB students and families living in Bridlewood. A 6th classroom addition will be built onto the back of the western portion of St. James School and is scheduled to be ready for students and staff in September 2022. In July 2020, we were pleased to receive confirmation of capital funding from the Ministry of Education for the construction of a 6th classroom addition to St. James School. The addition and associated planned renovations will serve to increase the St. James School capacity to 504 pupil places. With the addition, the capacity of St. James will be the same as St. Anne School and similar in size to most of our recently opened new elementary schools. Construction on the St. James School site for this exciting project is expected to start this summer. The project to build an addition at St. James School has seeds that were planted a number of years ago. Over the past 5 years, residential development in the attendance area of St. Anne School has resulted in a rapid increase in enrollment and significant overcrowding. In an effort to manage and reduce these pressures at St. Anne School, in 2016, staff proposed that an option area be established within the northern part of the St. Anne attendance boundary to provide students with an option to choose to attend St. James instead. As a result, in January 2017, after the completion of a local consultation process, board approved implementation of the option area. The geographic area that forms the option area was designed in order to balance enrollment between the two schools in the longer term. Input was received from the Ottawa Student Transportation Authority in an effort to respect student accessibility and walk zones. The St. James School and St. Anne School option attendance boundary, as shown in shaded green, is bounded by the Hydro Corridor to the north, Eagleson Road to the west, the National Capital Commission Greenbelt to the east, and generally Bridle Park Drive and Equestrian Drive to the south. As of October 2020, there were a total of 169 elementary students residing within the option area attending OCSB schools. 128 students enrolled at St. Anne School, 36 at St. James School, and 5 attended other OCSB schools. Since the implementation of the option area, the choice to attend St. James has slowly increased from 18 students in 2017 to 36 in 2020. For the current school year, the number of junior kindergarten students is divided almost equally between St. James and St. Anne. The Bridlewood area of Canada South is largely built out at this point, and development activity that could generate new students is forecast to be minimal. In the spring of 2019, a new 15-year capital plan was prepared for the board. This documentation included a 6-classroom addition to St. James School as one of the 6 projects required in the first 5-year window. The capital plan was made available to the St. James and St. Anne Catholic School Councils as well as the general public. The addition was included in the plan in conjunction with a future redirection of the option area to St. James School only to alleviate the pressures at St. Anne's School and to better balance the enrollment between the two sites. In September 2019, in response to a call from the province for capital priorities, the board requested funding from the Ministry of Education for the construction of an addition to St. James School. As noted earlier, we were pleased to receive confirmation of funding for the addition to St. James School in July 2020. Notice of the approved capital project and of the future attendance boundary revision consultation process was provided to both school communities in September 2020. At its meeting on January 26, 2021, Board approved a consultation process to gather input regarding a proposed revision to the attendance boundaries of St. James and St. Anne schools. The board report and approved consultation document for the process have been made available to the school communities as well as the Bridlewood Community Association. The consultation document contains information relevant to the proposal and the process. A dedicated St. James and St. Anne boundary revision public consultation page has been created and posted on the board's website, and links to this page have also been posted on both schools' websites. Notice of the consultation process has also been posted via standard social media channels. In order to ensure that we are able to incorporate feedback into the formulation of our final recommendations to the board, we are requesting input be provided no later than April 30th, 2021. Feedback can be submitted by email to planning@ocsb.ca, and please reference St. James, St. Anne boundary revision in the subject line. The approved timeline for the consultation process includes a number of important dates. On January 26, 2021, the consultation process was approved. On March 30th, 2021, at 7 p.m., a virtual public meeting regarding the proposal will take place. April 30th, 2021 is the deadline for public input regarding the proposal. In May 2021, a final staff recommendation report will be presented to the board for consideration. September 22 marks the scheduled completion of the addition and, if approved by board, the implementation date for the proposed attendance boundary revision. Generally, the current St. James attendance boundary is bounded on the west by Eagleson Road, on the north and the east by the former Nepean-Kanata municipal boundary, and on the south by the Hydro Corridor. Generally, the St. Anne attendance boundary is bounded on the west by Eagleson Road, on the north by the Hydro Corridor, on the east by the former Nepean-Kanata municipal boundary and Old Richmond Road, and on the south by Rushmore Road. This table represents the student enrollment, ministerial capacities, and utilization rates for St. James and St. Anne Elementary School as of October 31st, 2020. St. Anne is operating at 140% of its permanent school capacity and requires the use of 10 portable classrooms. St. James is operating at 102% capacity and does not currently require the use of portables. In order to alleviate the existing accommodation pressures being experienced at St. Anne's School and better balance enrollment between the two sites, staff are proposing an attendance boundary revision which would redirect the option area to St. James School only. The proposed change would relocate an estimated 100 students from St. Anne's School to St. James School for September 2022. The number of portables required at St. Anne's School would be significantly reduced. In addition, as the neighborhood continues to mature, the school would return to an enrollment more in line with its pupil capacity. With the addition in place, enrollment at St. James School would increase to a level matching its new capacity. This proposal will result in no changes to the secondary school feeding patterns. Grade 6 students at both elementary schools would continue to be directed to Holy Trinity High School for grade 7. Commencing in September 2022, all junior kindergarten to grade 6 students residing in the current option area, as highlighted in green, would be directed to St. James School. Junior kindergarten to grade 5 students residing in the current option area and attending St. Anne's School during the 21-22 school year would be relocated to St. James School in a block move for September 2022. All new students moving into the option area would also be directed to St. James School. Per the proposed revision, commencing for September 2022, the current option area would be added to the existing St. James School attendance boundary. The school's new attendance boundary under the proposal is shown. Per the proposed revision, commencing for September 2022, the current option area would be removed from the existing St. Anne attendance boundary. The school's new attendance boundary under the proposal is shown here. This table shows the projected enrollments and utilization rates for St. James and St. Anne elementary schools for the proposed attendance boundary revision for 2022, when the change is to be effective, and in 2026. The addition and renovations will serve to increase the capacity of the St. James School building from 363 pupil places to 504. For September 2022, St. James is projected to see its enrollment increase to 475 students, a utilization rate of 94%, while St. Anne's School is projected to have an enrollment of 534 students with a utilization rate of 106%. In September 2026, both schools are projected to have enrollments in the mid-400s and utilization rates in the 90% range. No portables are expected to be required at either school. Completion of the addition to St. James School and the proposed attendance boundary revision will result in long-term stability for OCSB elementary school families residing in the Bridlewood community. As a result, no further accommodation changes are anticipated. There are currently 130 students residing in the option area attending St. Anne's School. 68 of these students are able to walk to their designated school, St. Anne. Information received from the Ottawa Student Transportation Authority shows that implementation of the proposed boundary revision would see an additional 23 of these students able to walk to St. James. In total, 91 of the 130 current students would be able to walk to school. Should the proposal be approved, OSTA would take the revision into account when determining school walk zones and student transportation eligibility for September 2022. St. Anne's School is experiencing significant accommodation pressures on site and as a result requires the use of 10 portable classrooms for instruction. With an enrollment of over 700 students and a facility utilization rate of 140%, Common areas of the St. Anne School building are being overused, and traffic and congestion on site during peak periods has been a challenge. Almost all the area that is proposed to be redirected is located within the St. James School 1.6-kilometer walk zone for students in grades 1 to 6. Under the proposed revision, more students will be able to walk to school. The Ottawa Student Transportation Authority has estimated that one fewer bus will be required. The number of students residing in the option area who are choosing to attend St. James School has been increasing over the past few years. St. James School offers both a preschool childcare program on site and an extended day program for school-age students. A balance of enrollment between the two elementary schools serving students in the Bridlewood community will assist with creating a better distribution of busing and vehicular traffic in the area during peak periods of the day. The St. James School site is large enough to accommodate the proposed addition and provide adequate outdoor play for students. The additional students directed to St. James School may provide for an increase in extracurricular opportunities for the student population and school community. The proposal supports a comprehensive plan for elementary accommodation within the Bridlewood neighborhood that was put into effect in 2017. The addition and proposed attendance boundary revision will balance enrollments at the two schools that serve the community while reducing the significant accommodation pressures currently being experienced at St. Anne School. More students will be able to walk to school under the proposal, and one fewer bus is expected to be required. Traffic during peak periods of the day will be distributed more effectively between the two sites. St. James School offers both a preschool and before and after school program. Although it is understood that change can be difficult for students and families in the immediate, the proposal should bring stability to the two school communities in the longer term. If approved, the redirection of students from St. Anne to St. James School will be effective for September 2022. This will provide time during the 21-22 school year for both school communities to assist students and families with the transition. For more information regarding the boundary revision consultation process, please visit the St. James and St. Anne School Attendance Boundary Revision public consultation webpage. The link is provided below. We look forward to receiving your input regarding the proposed attendance boundary revision. Your feedback is welcome throughout the consultation process, but please note that in order to ensure that we are able to incorporate it into the formulation of our recommendations to board, we would appreciate receiving it prior to Friday, April 30th, 2021. It may be submitted via email to planning@ocsb.ca. Please reference St. James St. Anne Boundary Revision in the subject line when submitting your feedback. A final staff recommendation report regarding the proposal will be brought forward for consideration to a board meeting in May 2021. Once a meeting date has been confirmed, notice will be provided to the two school communities and those who have participated in the process. This concludes our presentation regarding a proposed attendance boundary revision that would impact both St. Anne and St. James schools. I would like to take a moment to thank you for participating in this process. Your input is valuable and will help inform recommendations that will be brought forward to our board for consideration. On behalf of the Ottawa Catholic School Board, thank you again.
Thank you for that, and thank you for persevering through the technical difficulties that we knew were coming. So thank you for that. I noticed that we've already got a hand raised, and then that's fantastic. But before we move into the Q&A period of the evening, I'd like to take a little bit of time to summarize some of the input that we've heard to date. So we're 2 months into the consultation process, and we've had a significant amount of feedback so far. 13 different individuals have provided comments regarding the proposal. I will take a moment to extend our thanks to you for this. I think we are a better organization, and we have better schools and students with your participation. And the input does help us better understand your concerns and the concerns that are out there in the community. Some of the themes in the feedback so far relate to access to St. James and changes to transportation eligibility, should the boundary revision be approved. The St. James walk zone for students in grades 1 to 6, the mental strain that bringing this proposal forward now is having on students and families, and access to childcare programs at St. James for students who would be changing schools. But the largest request that we have heard so far, and one that is recurring and present in almost all of the input that we receive, is around the proposed block movement of students residing in the option area from St. Anne to St. James for September 2022. I think before we start, some background is required. A block move was chosen as a starting point for the proposal because it does not split families who have more than one student, while achieving the need to reduce pressures at St. Anne and better balance enrollment between the two sites once the addition is complete. Although we understand that the change will be difficult, all students would relocate for September 2022 as one group and would settle into their new surroundings and new routines relatively quickly. With the help of the two schools working closely together to assist in the transition over the course of the coming school year, we felt it was the right place to start. Both St. Anne and St. James students would reunite for grade 7 at Holy Trinity High School. We do recognize that grade 5 students at St. Anne would be included in that move. And we've heard very clearly that having those children attend 3 different schools in 3 successive years is not something that parents would like to see. Again, one of the challenges in that instance for parents would be that siblings would be split between different schools. We also know that providing an option for all existing students and their siblings to choose to stay at St. Anne would very likely result in an empty addition on site at St. James and a continuation of the need for a high number of portables at St. Anne, likely for 5+ years. And this is something that is just not feasible. It would defeat the purpose of the plan that was put into effect a few years ago and the capital funding that the province has provided the board with. A quick word as well before we move into the Q&A portion of the agenda. Although we are taking notes this evening and can review the broadcast after, it really never hurts to follow up with an email to provide detailed information you feel we should have. And with that, I think we can proceed to the Q&A part of the evening. And again, I think you can use the raise hand icon if you would like to ask a question of staff or make a comment, and you'll be put in the queue. Once you have been identified by Ms. Marcon Stewart, by the moderator, once you hear your name, if you could please unmute your microphone, turn on your camera, identify yourself and your school affiliation, and start from there. I think we'll go from there.
Thank you, Ian. The first person on the list is just identified as a CZ. So if you would please like to unmute and disable or enable your camera. If you could please identify yourself and which school you're affiliated with. CZ. Could it be Chrissy Zaraliakos? Okay, maybe I'll go to the next person on the list. It's Shotaro Son.
Yes. Hope you hear me. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you.
This is Shotaro Son. I'm sending 4 of our kids to St. Anne. And I have a question basically for 2 points. 1 point is on our transportation right now is walking, which is 800 meters from our house to St. Anne. Whereas if you were to attend St. James, 1.7 kilometers, which is a bus distance from our home to St. James. And that's going to give us a lot of inconvenience. And that's one thing. In terms of transportation, it's not making any sense to me. And then the second question I have is for fairness for kids, isn't there any chance for kids who are already attending to have an option to remain in the same school or not? Because changing school induces a big stress for sure. And then we just got here, we have been attending the school for 1 year, and then that has been a big stress for kids. And then thanks to Ottawa Catholic School Board and St. Anne is fantastic school. That doesn't mean anything bad about St. James, but St. James must be great as well. But we have to spend a significant amount of hours and the effort to be part of the school. And then now, like all 4 kids have to go for different school, it's going to be a big stress, especially my wife. It's a personal situation, but my wife is single parenting right now. I'm in California. I'm joining from San Jose right now. And then due to work, I'm abroad. And then that's going to be a huge challenge for all 4 of our kids. And then isn't there any consideration for the situation? Or I believe a lot of each individual family has their own situation. Isn't there any consideration per cases? That's the second question I have.
Thank you, Shitaro, for your questions. We really appreciate it. So I'll take the first one first. You're talking about, obviously, I think the information that you've heard tonight is that the attendance boundary in general, the change, basically the proposed revision will result in more students being, in general, across the entirety, more students being able to walk to school, and one fewer bus in the neighborhood. Certainly, individual circumstances will differ, and student accessibility, while it's an important piece in putting together the attendance boundary, the optional area that was put together and formed in 2016 and 2017, it is really just one piece. It's an important piece, but it's one piece. And so again, you are going to get individual circumstances where the revision and the change results in maybe a longer walk or even being bused or eligible for busing versus being able to walk. So that's sort of the first piece, I think. And I think your second piece related to, you talked a little bit about, I think, again, the main piece of feedback that we've heard is a request for existing students that reside in the option area who attend St. Anne to be able to stay at St. Anne. And again, we've heard that. The issue, obviously, is if we allowed that to happen, we would end up with, the assumption would be that almost all students, if not all students, would choose to stay at St. Anne, who live in the optional area. And we would have an empty addition, and we would continue to have a very high number of portables on site at St. Anne. So that certainly is not something that we would entertain. However, I will say that in terms of grade 6 students, I think we recognize that that is a hardship that is a little bit unique in this circumstance. Those students, the grade 6 students, and I'm talking about the grade 6 students for 2022-2023, they would be in a circumstance where they would be directed to 3 different schools in 3 successive years. So St. Anne for grade 5, St. James for grade 6, and Holy Trinity for grade 7. So I think that's an area that we are certainly looking at. We're receiving the feedback that has been a major theme, and we are looking at that. And but again, the issue for us, we know it's an impact on the ground, a short-term impact for families. But I think the issue for the board obviously is that we think the plan makes a lot of sense longer term. We think the plan is going to bring a lot of stability, a lot of stability to Bridlewood in the longer term. And although there will be impact in the short term, we really want that change to happen. We're going to work with the schools and the students. We've got a year ahead of us to help transition those students from to sort of work for St. James and St. Anne to work together to help those students transition for that move that would happen for September of 2022. So we understand, but I think it's a difficult situation, but I think that on the whole, we think that moving students over for September 2022 is really the right thing to do in the longer term.
Anna, was there any clarification about there is a boundary change that could be forced in the future? For example, if we were given that information to begin with, we would have chosen other schools such as St. James to begin with, and then we didn't have the information that I had is once we pick the school, then kids do not need to change the school unless we change the address. And based on that, we made a decision. And then now, hey, it's the order, you have to leave. That's a little harsh. If the information is given as an interim period or so, or if that's announced to the public, then that does make sense. But it's a little sudden. And then once we started schooling, it's a lot of difficulty involved. That's my opinion. But given my time is 2 minutes, I'll stop here. But I'm going to write the email about that, and that's my honest opinion. But overall, I appreciate all the Catholic School Board. So please understand, I'm not trying to be against it. But from fair view, as a parent, our kids are not numbers. It's not hey, just for more efficient allocation, move those 5 to this area or so. We don't move city because hey, this city is overcrowded, so move your family to suburb or some. We don't do it. It's the same idea. Thank you.
And I think I appreciate that, and I think that's why I mentioned earlier that we don't take these changes lightly. We do understand the impact, and really there has been stability between St. James and St. Anne. There has been stability for a long period of time. You're talking about in the 20-year range. So although these things don't happen often, when they do, we understand that they are impactful for a period of time. We know that children are resilient. We are all parents, and we certainly understand that we understand the situation for sure, and we appreciate your input. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So the next person on the list is Liz Joden.
Hi, I'm my daughter's affiliated with St. Anne's, and along on the much line of the gentleman before me, the being forced to change schools is not really ideal for some of us who have been with St. Anne's for 4 and 5 years. By the time this takes place, my daughter will be at St. Anne's, starting her 5th or 6th year, because she's been there since she started school in junior kindergarten. Plus, she also has many resources set up for her IEP and stuff. Like, yes, I understand it could be transferred over, but Mrs. Blackburn, who's absolutely amazing and knows my daughter like wholeheartedly, knows what kind of transition this might do to a child like her. And there's other children like her out there that this might not be a good thing. It could be very detrimental to their learning and put them even further behind, whereas everything is set up for them now. And on the busing aspect, I think you actually need more busing than what you guys have now, because especially for St. Anne's, it is a nightmare. I'm a school bus driver myself. It's a nightmare watching the children almost getting hit on a daily basis because there's so much more traffic with parents having to drive children not to school, and to be the same. It's the same thing with St. James. So you guys need more busing for the young children. But just on the boundaries, like for us, we're closer to St. Anne's than we would be St. James. So why would I want to switch when I'm closer to St. Anne's?
So in terms of, again, I think I certainly understand that the change is difficult, and I have been through this. I've been with the public board. I was with the public board before coming to the Catholic board about 2 years ago, and these things are very difficult. And what I have heard, I mean, again, not every single circumstance, but what I have heard really is that the schools do a fantastic job of really helping students transition, whether it be those days, those welcome days, whether it be sort of the sod turning at St. James for the addition. But there's going to be a whole school year ahead where Joanne and Derek are going to be able to work together with those students and provide them with some special assistance, and bringing them to the schools and having them meet the students at St. James, and all kinds of things like that. So, and the other piece is that, I mean, again, I'm a parent. I've been through these types of things. Children tend to be quite resilient and adaptable. Again, depending, I'm not speaking for everyone, but in general, my experience has been that I've spoken to parents who, after these kinds of changes have happened and they're implemented, and the students are settled in at their new school, it really works out well. New friends are found, are added to their old friends, and it tends to work out quite well. And in terms of your comment around St. Anne and the congestion on site, I completely agree with you. We've, from what I've heard, it's been a really, there have been some very difficult times at St. Anne due to the fact that the enrollment is so high. And we're trying to solve that in the longer term in terms of balancing enrollment between those two sites, the two schools that serve Bridlewood. So thank you for your comments. We appreciate it.
But it's still not a reason to, like, you guys really need to look at the enrollment years and not pull a student who's only known life at St. Anne's and St. Anne's was chosen specifically for certain reasons, because of the resource programs that they have there, because of the teachers that they have there. Like, I did my research and chose specifically St. Anne's out of my boundaries for these specific reasons, for the staffing there and the programs that they have there. Yes, they may be available at St. James, but for my daughter, like, I don't want to switch her when she starts her 5th or 6th year there. And we
No,
shouldn't be forced, but we shouldn't be forced and told, you have to do this. Well, no, we're the parents. We should be able to make these calls for our children, not be told that this is what you have to do.
I understand.
Okay, so Are you ready? The next one is Bruno.
It's a little bit, maybe a little bit of feedback. Sorry, Bruno. I think your microphone is muted.
You need to unmute your mic.
There you go.
There you go.
I think you're good now, Bruno.
Hello?
Yeah, I think you're good now.
Thanks. Sorry about that. So yeah, I have several comments. I don't know even where to start. I will try to. So yeah, I think this changing block of the students is unacceptable. I cannot accept that. Okay. When we are looking for the school for the kids, we went to both schools, and I remember perfectly that I have asked, okay, there's this option area. If the option area changes, what will happen with my kids? They told me, if your kid started that school, it will finish on that school. So if you are saying something different now, someone has lied to me. Another thing, I will quote the OCSB website. Once a student has elected to attend a particular school in an option area, they must remain at that school for the remainder of their program unless they move to a new address. This is at OCSB website. So I think OCSB is being cheap, forcing the students on block, because the school is working at 140%. It's not ideal, but it's working now. If you just freeze the new enrollments in the option area, in 3 years, you will have the balance that you want to have. So instead of creating all this stress to the students, in the middle of this pandemic, everyone is stressed, okay? And you are planning to transfer the bulk of the students. My son will be in the grade 6. My daughter will be in grade 3. So it will be a problem, even if you let my son stay at St. Anne, and then my daughter will need to go to St. James. It will be a big problem. So yes, I think you should think very well about that. Keep the portables for 3 years more at St. Anne, and then you find your balance. But the other thing is the option area, I think it's very bad planned. Okay, it's more than half of the area is near St. Anne and St. James. Okay, yeah, I could share my screen. I have several pictures about that. Over 210 houses in the option area are outside walking zone of St. James. It's in the plan, it's written in the plan that all the area is inside walking zone of St. James. This is a lie. There's no other. So over 210 houses are outside the walking zone. If you keep this plan the way it is, you finally, some students will migrate to OC, the public school board. It's HOCA here is already at 107%. So you are solving one problem and creating another, if not other problems. If you take so the equity stance line, instead of horizontal, it should be vertical. So the new, if you are changing that, it should be changed completely different way. You have houses in the option area that are 400 meters from St. Anne and 1,600 meters from St. James. It's really, really bad planned, and based on wrong data. there's wrong data on the proposal. So I think you take a decision based on wrong data. It's unethical, if not illegal. Okay, so I have several other things to say. The area of sentence is bigger, so you could have chosen to increase the sentence instead of increase St. James. Yeah, so that's it.
So Bruno, I don't want to interrupt you, but maybe we'll start with the, you were left, apparently you were left with the impression that that your child, when you registered at St. Anne, you were left with the impression that your child was guaranteed to be able to stay at St. Anne forevermore and until the end of grade 6. And I think what I can say, and I apologize if that was the impression that was left with you, but no student.
Sorry. But
Sorry.
This was the answer, not impressive. This was the answer that they gave me. And this is what's written on the website, OCSB website. It's written.
So no student, whether you live in an option area or whether you live in an attendance boundary that is designated to one school only, no student in the OCSB is guaranteed to finish out their schooling at the same school. They're guaranteed to finish out final grade, same school.
Okay, but I asked because I asked exactly because there was the option area at that time, and I said, okay, I can choose between the two. What happens if I choose one and then the boundary changes? So my kids need to attend the other school. They said, no, if your kid started that school, he will finish that school. So,
and I think, sorry, not to interrupt, but I think the intention behind that, the wording and maybe the message from St. Anne was that when you're in an option area in the OCSB, from an educational perspective, the intention is that we do not want children and students moving just because you can theoretically move, you can choose to attend either St. James or St. Anne. Once you've registered at either St. Anne or St. James, the idea is that you remain at that school and that you do not switch back and forth between schools. And I think that was why, that's the intention of that provision. So again, I apologize if the impression was left that you were guaranteed to finish out regardless of any other changes. You were guaranteed to finish out at the school, because that's again it's not just students in the option area. In this particular option area, no student in the OCSB is guaranteed to finish out at the school that they started. We have changes that occur not all the time, but we do have changes occasionally, attendance boundary changes. We have new schools that come online where students will be moving. They'll be moving schools. They'll be moving from the school that they're currently directed to a new school. That they're not guaranteed to remain at that school that is not located in their neighborhood until they finish out grade 6. They will be moved from that school to the new school that is opened in their community.
Yeah, but this is like a completely new school. But I asked it while there was this option area. So my question was exactly about the option area, and the answer was based on that. So if they answered wrong for me, they lied to me, right? So, and again, I think it's a very bad idea, and you are being cheap, saving money of a few portables for a couple of years. So if you keep the portables, the school is working at 140%. It's working, maybe not ideal. So if instead of transfer the kids on block, you keep the portables, freeze the new students, on the outer area. If you freeze it, you cannot. No, now you need to go to St. James, and 1 year you will need 10 portables. The next year will be you will need, I don't know, 6 or 5, and the next year you will need 3, and then you have the balance that you want. You said it's a long-term plan. So why you are trying to do a long-term plan in just one cut, and create stress for the student? My kid, when he knew about that, someone told about the school, and when he sent the email, he was crying. Okay, because I will need to change the school. Okay, so this is not a plan taught by a careful educator. It's not.
No, I think we understand, and I appreciate your passion, and I can only tell you that we do understand, and we do appreciate the impact on families. So I think maybe we'll move on to the next in the queue. Thank you, Bruno.
Just want to follow up. Not only Bruno, I had the same impression.
Just a minute, please. I'm sorry, but we have to go to the next person in queue so we can respect that everybody has an opportunity to speak. Thank you. The next person is Cass Bizuski, please.
Hi there. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Cass.
Thank you. So I'm with St. Anne, and my oldest started going there in 2012. And when we started going there, she's now at Holy Trinity, first year Holy Trinity, and I still have a daughter at St. Anne. But when we started at St. Anne, there was one portable and a very large schoolyard, which was very much appreciated. There was lots of places to run around. So since then, it was also the first year that they offered full day kindergarten at St. Anne, and they had 6 kindergarten classes already full at that point. Within a year, we saw it increase to 8, and we saw our first additional set of portables come in. And we've only seen an increase in portables since then, and the loss of the schoolyard. So less places for our kids to be able to run around and to immerse that get rid of that energy that they'd be building up in those classrooms. So to me, and it's not going to be a welcome hearing from a lot of the other St. Anne parents, I'm welcoming this change. I also lived across the street from St. Anne directly. So oftentimes if I was trying to leave for work around the time that school would be starting or coming home when school was finishing, I couldn't even get into my own driveway because there would be so many cars parked blocking my driveway or directly across from it. So this move, which I've been hearing about for the last 4 or 5 years as a member of the parent council, I'm welcoming it. Although I understand that there is some frustration for other parents. I am a child who moved a lot, being a military family, so I did have to change schools quite often. I did bounce back. I changed provinces in grade 6. Was it easy? No. Did I make more friends? Those are my best friends I have today. So there is some benefits to changing, and we all did move on. So my question really to the board is, what are you doing to shift new students that are located in the bubble today that would have the opportunity to St. James before 2022? Would you be suggesting them move to St. James for this upcoming September if they are a new student trying to come to St. Anne and they are within that bubble area? Or would you still accept them at St. Anne and then force them to move a year later to St. James?
Thank you for your comments, Cass. They're appreciated. So there's still an option area in place for 2021, for the coming 2021-2022 school year. However, I think from what I understand, St. Anne is doing a fantastic job of informing parents parents of new students who are registering for this year, and letting them know that a consultation process is underway. There is a proposed revision that would redirect the optional area to St. James only, and basically providing, making sure that the parents are aware and informed of the decision. But yeah, absolutely, they can choose to register at either St. James or St. Anne. And does that explain, I think, a little bit?
That does explain. So basically they would be given, let me just make sure I've understood this. They would be notified of the provision that they potentially would be moved over in 2022 to the new school. But if they decide that they still would like to register their child for St. Anne, then they would also need to make sure they understood that the following year they would be moved over as a forced change. Okay.
Yeah. If they were to choose to enroll at St. Anne versus St. James for September of 2021, they would be informed that should, again, there's a proposal that's going to be brought forward for consideration to the board, and if approved, they would be moving over to St. James.
Okay, thank you.
For
That answers my
2022.
question.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Good luck.
Okay, thank you. The next person is Yaxi Morales. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you.
So I support most other the other parents that are being affected by the change. That it's a great challenge, and it's a great change, mostly during these days, to put our children to the stress. As an immigrant myself, I understand Kat's position on just change. Sometimes it's a better way or it's a good way, but in the last year, the stress we have been put through and the mental health imposed, like the stress on mental health imposed in our children has been in a great length, and their resilience has been extended to the limit, I'm gonna say. So one of my first question is, have you been in consultation with the public health and mental health and psychologists? And after all what's going on with the COVID the last year, with all the changes we have been through, and this decision was made long before all this stress. So have you updated your health and safety requirements for this project to move the block in 2022? That's one, okay with the change. I'm not okay with the block move happening for children. That's my question. I know you addressed part of the change for the 6th grade student that will be changing to three different schools in 3 consecutive years. My son is one of those, and I also have a little one. So I have two children there. Same as the other parent, I think Bruno was mentioning. When we decided to move, and we recently purchased a house in the area. We were already renting close by, and we were renting there because we chose Santa Ana as a school. So when we bought our house, we were looking at the boundaries and the star lines, and we were able to find a place within the boundary, even though it was optional, son. But they remain at San Anne. So saying my son has a small condition, and the school has been really good at supporting us in that sense. They belong, and he belongs mostly, the older one, to San Anne, and his friends and everything is like he doesn't know anything else that San Anne, since he was like the last 5 years has been there. So from my point of view, from the mental health, from the community, from the belonging, from our children and their roots, from children that has been there for at least 5 years, it's gonna be a great change. And given the situation we have right now, it's even greater. It's not that if we didn't have this, it's gonna be easier. Well, but we all have been put through a lot of challenge this last year. So I'm not sure if adding this, how this will impact our children. And the last question I have, I don't want to take too long because I understand other parents have some questions too, is have we updated this also with the online school that is here to stay? I know for a fact that many of our portables are not in use because many of our parents our community parents decide to stay home. for the next year, for the last year. So I don't know if also did we have we updated the plan with this census we have done, or like is it really a good time right now to keep moving with a project that has been on the books for a while now, and yes, I understand the situation right now is not the best. We're doing our best to make it work, but in 3 years it will be better, right? Because the new students will be there, and I don't want to sound selfish that I don't want my children to be moved. And okay, even if we decide to move the kindergarten and grade first, and I have to move my little one and split families into school, but people like the children that has been there for the last 5 years, and so like it's
Okay.
too much for them.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Morales. We really appreciate your comments and your question. So a few things. You're right. The plan was really put in, the option area was put into place. There's a consultation process that dates back to the fall of 2016. The capital plan and the plan to request funding for an addition and the redirection of the option area to St. James only dates back to the spring of 2019 with board approval in the fall of 2019. I think we all understand that this has been a difficult time for everyone, including kids. I can tell you that the one thing that although we knew that we were initiating the process in the middle of a pandemic, the consultation process, not perfect, not optimal. I think one of the things I really wanted to ensure was that that the process took place and a decision for parents was made well enough in advance that that the transition could take place, that there was some certainty for for a full year in advance of September 2022. So although it seems a little counterintuitive in the sense that we started the process during a pandemic, I think we're hopefully things are hopefully going to be looking a little bit better during the next school year, and certainly by September. And again, that was part of the thinking, really, was the fact that we wanted parents to have sufficient notice and a bit of certainty for that school year, one school year in advance, versus starting a consultation process next year, with little notice. So that was our thinking. That was some of our thoughts on that. So maybe the next.
All right. So the next person is Nicole Robinson. And can I just indicate that we still have a few people, so let's just be mindful of the time as well. Thank you.
Hi, folks. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
Perfect.
Okay, great. Thanks. So I'm Nicole Robinson Bacino, and our family has 2 kiddos at St. Anne. And I've been a member of Parent Council as well for the last 5 years. We love everything about St. Anne, and we echo many of the sentiments that have already been shared tonight, particularly around the sentiment of being forced to have our then grade 4 and 5 move after spending the majority of their elementary career at St. Anne. That said, we do understand the challenges at hand. So let's talk a bit about the line. So if we're looking at the boundaries, we're confused about how the line was specifically determined. And I guess we're coming from a place of, we live 500 meters away from St. Anne. And we moved to this home specifically so that our girls could attend St. Anne and walk to and from this school. When we moved here 6 years ago, it was not part of the option area. Actually, our street was on the line. And now with the most recent revision, we've just been pushed one over, yeah. So underneath the new boundaries, which cuts off First Street by the south of our home by one street, we will now be forced to travel 2 kilometers on a bus, which is completely against the wishes of our family. So I guess the first question was with regards to, will the consideration be made for these? It sort of sounds from some of the other folks that question has already been answered. I guess if you could comment on how the line was created, that would be most helpful, as well as if there is a delay with the construction, which we've built a lot of homes in our years, delays are frequent. If that occurs, how will this be handled? Thank you.
So I think I can comment. Thank you for your comments and your question around the boundary. So I was not with the board during 2016 and 2017. That was when the optional area was created, and it was approved by board in I think it was January 2017. And so a couple of things. I mean, there are so many different variables that go into the creation of of an attendance boundary in general. Student enrollment, current, but also forecasted, how things will look in the future, 5 years hence, 10 years hence, development, barriers, student access, man-made or natural barriers, neighborhood alignments, logic, just plain common sense. And in this particular case, obviously an addition is, at that time, we were not looking at an addition when the optional area was created. But the area does actually lend itself well to balancing enrollment between the 2 schools in the longer term. I think we've seen the numbers. I think 5 years hence, both schools would have capacities at 504 pupil places and utilization rates in the low 90% range, enrollments in the mid 400s. So in the case of the optional area, a couple of things. The other piece I think that's important, and it's not perfectly achievable. I think we really did try to have regard for the walk zone, or the grade 1 to 6 walk zone that OSTA has put together. It doesn't match it perfectly. I think we heard earlier that not all of it doesn't replicate the walk zone, but it's very close. There are a large majority of the option area is located within that 1.6 kilometer walk zone. We've heard that information from OSTA tells us that more students will be able to either walk, bike, scooter, actively get to their schools versus being on a bus. We think that's a positive, one fewer bus in the community. So a variety of things, but I certainly understand that depending on where the line is ultimately drawn, those kinds of larger, high-level positives don't really help you when you are sitting in a particular circumstance. And I do understand that. Hope that helps.
Okay, so moving on to Renata Chernish.
Oh, hello?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much for taking my question. I apologize. I joined a little bit late, so I don't know if you have already covered the subject, but I do have 2 kids at St. Anne. And listening to some of the comments from previous parents, I was under impression, listening to the conversation, I'm under impression that there will be, like, all kids are forced to move. There's no choices. However, a couple of years ago when this whole started, I did spoke to the previous principal of St. Anne, and I was led to believe that there would be an option for grandfathering kids so they can actually finish St. Anne, especially when I think my boy will be just going into grade 6. So if you could confirm that, if there will be any considerations or the kids have to move. Second thing that I would like to ask a question is, if I'm a single parent. I'm also a military. So this means that my kids would be in a third school before they even reach grade 6, which is very concerning to me. And although I appreciate that, comments that kids are resilient. Yes, kids tend to be resilient, but not all kids are resilient. And I struggled a lot with moving kids from one school to another, from, home to home and things like that, as you can imagine. And the pandemic, it's just did not help the situation. So I'm really concerned about, putting further stress, especially when, my daughter already talks about switching schools, and it's obviously bringing more stress on her. So will there be any consideration for kids to finish if they have like 1 year left at St. Anne or not? And second question that I have, as I am working full time, I need before and after school. If my kids are to move, will you guarantee me spots for before and after school at the new location? Or am I now have to start right now putting my kids on a list? How will that all be handled? Just out of curiosity. Thank you.
Thank you for the comments and the questions. So I'm going to start with the last one first. And we have looked into the school age program at St. James, and there are spots available. So no issues there in terms of the extended day program at St. James. You talked a little bit about, you mentioned a potential option for students to remain at St. Anne rather than move over to St. James. So right now, the proposal, you're right, the proposal right now that is on the table would have all students, including grade 6s or grade 5s, let's say, during this coming school year, move over to St. James for September 2022. But that's right now, that is the proposal that we are consulting on.
Okay.
A final decision has not been made. A recommendation to trustees has not been made yet by staff. I think we had talked a little bit about, I think I had mentioned specifically the grade 6 students, and the difficulties and the challenges that we, I think, know around, three different schools in 3 successive years. That is a unique situation for sure. The difficulty for us, and I think I tried to sort of allude to it earlier, the difficulty is that, we have $3.1 million coming from the province. We have an addition to St. James that is going to be open, a 6 classroom addition for September 2022. So where do you draw the line in terms of providing, let's call it grandfathering or grandparenting, or an option to stay, a sibling option? Where do you draw the line? Because we know that, all things considered, if parents of students who reside in the optional area and who are at St. Anne right now, if they were given the choice to stay at St. Anne, they would most likely stay at St. Anne. And really what that does is, what that would in effect do is it would leave the new school, the new space at St. James empty, and it would leave St. Anne with a very high enrollment and a high number of portables on that site for a number of years moving forward. So it's really
yes, I believe so. But yeah,
these are difficult decisions, and I know they're really, and we sympathize. We are parents. We have been through these situations. We sympathize certainly with those who are going through it. We hope that these kinds of changes aren't made often, and we are going to do our best to strike a balance in terms of what we recommend to the board for a final decision.
Wonderful, but do you actually have that data available as to how many parents, like right now, the impression I'm getting, you're assuming most parents would choose to stay with St. Anne, although I know some parents that decided to move kids to a different school because they know it's coming. So is there a possibility to do a survey with all the affected families to see where actually they are at, to see what really would be the impact and make decisions from there? Maybe that would be more informed decision.
I think that's one thought. My experience with surveys is that they are not, guarantees of action at the end of the day. So it's sort of a moment in time.
But neither
once-
are these meetings in Ottawa because you guys are going to do what you want to do no matter what.
Excuse,
as parents
I'm
have to
sorry.
say.
Only one person at a time, please. We have to respect the person that's speaking. Thank you.
But I appreciate the thought. Absolutely. Thank you.
Wonderful. So if I understood you correctly, I don't really have to worry about before and after school. This is something that will be taken care of.
That, as far as I understand it, absolutely, there is space available at St. James in terms of the school age program. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to go back to the first person that was on the list, CZ. If you still want to speak, otherwise I'll remove you from the list. CZ. Okay. So now, Ian, we're starting to go over repeats. Do we have? Do you want to move forward?
Yeah, absolutely. So just to let everyone know, the meeting is going to adjourn at 9 o'clock this evening. So certainly, if you have follow-up questions, we're willing to do our best to answer them, and certainly receive your comments as well. So.
Excuse me, I had a question, but my hand got lowered and I'm not a repeat.
Oh, okay. No, absolutely, please.
I apologize for that.
That's okay. This is specifically about St. James and like if the boundary proposal is approved, it's kind of St. James specific. So my child goes to St. Anne right now. So my question is, we have like 100 families or so, and you've already stated that St. James is at 102% capacity. What happens if, say, 60 families decide, I'm not waiting until September 2022 because I don't want my child to be in grade 4 at St. Anne, grade 5 and 6 at St. James, and grade 7 at Holy Trinity, 3 schools in 4 years. So if say 60 families decide I'm not waiting, I'm moving my child in September 2021, I'm assuming like the school is already at capacity. So what are you going to do? I'm assuming that you're going to put portables on the St. James site. And the same thing, if the deadline in September 22 is missed, again, what happens to the 100 students that will be moved over at that time? Like, would you have to introduce portables to accommodate all these kids?
So I'll take the second question. Those are good questions and good thoughts. So the second question I'll take first, and I think the second question, and I think it was mentioned by Ms. Morales, I think, if I recall earlier as well, and I missed it. The idea that if the addition is not ready for September 2022? If that were, so that is a thought that has come to us, even though frankly we feel we are in really good shape schedule-wise to meet September. But you're right. I mean, these projects are difficult and challenging, and at times, those scheduled dates, have to be pushed back. If that were to happen, I would hope that we would know about that possibility within the next 2 months or so. And the thought would be that we would ensure that the report to board speaks of September 2022 for implementation, or when the addition is completed on site. Right? So in other words, we would not want to move the kids over without the addition. The two things really all along, the completion of the addition to St. James and the attendance boundary revision, those really are in conjunction. They are in sync with each other. So I think that's how that could be handled, with sort of a revision, with not a hard date of September 22, but with a provision that the implementation would be subject to or per once the addition is completed on site. The second or the first part of your question, so if parents decided to embrace St. James 1 year early, what would that do to St. James? You're right. That would be a very tricky situation because we have the addition that's being constructed on site as well, and we have the possibility of portables being required. So that would be very tricky for sure. That would be difficult for St. James, absolutely. Mm-hmm. I'm not expecting that given the discussion this evening so far.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we're on to the next, we're back to Shotaro Son, please.
Oh, I believe the Dunn family is a person who hasn't yet had a chance. So please move forward with that person.
The Dunn family.
Hi, sorry, can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
Great, thank you. First, I want to thank you for holding this meeting and taking our questions. It's very much appreciated. As others have mentioned, there are many students who fall in the option area but are within 1 kilometer or less to St. Anne's. So for those students, that means a much safer, quiet walk down a new subdivision to the back entrance of St. Anne's, to their back entrance, compared to a very busy 1.6 kilometer or more walk down Stonehaven Drive, which is very congested. Is there any consideration to review the option area for those students that are closer to St. Anne, or maybe even on the same side of the street as St. Anne?
Thank you for your question. I'm going to be honest with you, I don't think there is, only because I think, and I understand, I think your situation in terms of being located more in the easterly portion, maybe of the option area, and the proximity to St. Anne versus a longer distance to St. James. Again, the problem is revising the attendance boundary to, again, we've talked about the collective benefits in terms of more students being able to walk to school with the change, one fewer bus, and again, making a change like that would, we would likely have to find. We'd likely have to make other changes to that boundary. Removing that area, adding another area. So, I understand the individual circumstance, but the likelihood is that we would not be making that change.
Okay, so we're back to Shotaro.
Okay, thanks. Just to let you know that, as Bruno mentioned, I had the same impression, and then which is once students start attending, then we can basically finish the school, which was denied by you right now. But just to give you the sense, I think many parents had, not only Bruno, I think there's one more person was on the same page as well, and then. That being said, it was a huge misdirection to make the huge big decision for our important kids. And then please think that as additional information. Again, if that's widely known for all parents before making decisions, that's completely different story. If that's written, if that's given, there's a risk that you might be sent to some other school or so. Then that's making sense. But within a boundary area, without having new school coming up, we're told, you could choose one or the other, but and then once you choose, you are likely you can keep attending. But well, that wasn't the case. Where is like the fairness there? Just as a like I'm an international businessman, and then where's the fairness? Where's the fair deal for kids? Like we are making decisions like on behalf of important kids, and then where's the fairness for kids? That's my question. And then is there any chance that St. Anne can get additional buildings? Because that sounds more rational looking at the capacity and like an area. That's what I feel like. Thank you.
I think if we were to put an addition onto St. Anne, we would remove the portables, but we would not remove the congestion and some of the issues that the common areas, the congestion, some of those issues that have been, that have been significant, I think, at St. Anne over the past 5 years. Those would not change. So I think that's the answer for that.
Thank you. Just I sort of understood it there's no option, there's no room to negotiate. Basically, at this point, Ottawa Catholic School Board is saying there's no chance, but you might be able to express your feeling, but decision is decision. It's not going to be changed. Is that what I'm understanding right now?
I don't think that's at all what you're understanding. I think what you're understanding is that there's a proposal that we are discussing right now that's being considered. That proposal starts with, as I mentioned earlier, a block move of students from who reside in the optional area from St. Anne to St. James. We are certainly receiving the message loud and clear that parents would like to remain at St. Anne. And a decision has not been made by any stretch. That decision will not happen until the end of May by the Board of Trustees. So.
Okay, thank you. Again, nothing personal. Please don't take that as aggressive.
Oh, absolutely not. But I just want to make sure you understand. But I did feel that I think we need to be at least transparent with you. With our objectives and our we have an addition that is going on. We have $3.1 million of capital coming from the province, predicated upon that space being filled with students. There's been a plan in place for a number of years, and so I just felt I wanted to make sure that I was that I was at least forthright with the limitations of providing options to stay at St. Anne. So hopefully you take that. Hopefully that it's taken in that context and with that spirit. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so we have Bruno up again.
Is it possible to me to share my screen? Can you allow me that?
I'm sorry, we're not able to do that at this point.
Okay, so yeah, I had 2 pictures.
We have received your documentation.
Yeah, but I would like to share with the other parents too, right? So yeah, it would be nice to have this option, but that's okay. So I go with Sotara. The answers that is given here looks like all the options are closed. Right, so looks like this meeting is just to checklist. So, we did the meeting. Now we can go forward with our plan. That's what I'm feeling here, and that's what my wife is feeling too. Like Ian say, okay, I understand you as a parent, but we don't have. We cannot change that. So I understand you have these budgets to do the addition to the St. James, okay, but the new boundary, you should think much better about that. Like I will send the picture that I did with equity stance lines. It's not difficult to do that. And you can see that's totally wrong, the new boundary, like for the distance. Like more than half of the area is near St. Anne and St. James, more than half. So yeah, it's really bad, really, really bad. And you're saying that you cannot change that anymore. So what's the proposal? Why this meeting is happening? If everything that was asked here said, oh no, we cannot do that, we cannot do this. So it looks like it's already made. The options are ready. You have the option already. The plan is already made. Even if it's wrong, if it's based on wrong information, it's already made. You can check in the checklist and go forward. This is just a theater. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on is Liz Joden.
Is there any room for compromise? Like, say, the people registering out of the optional boundary, instead of having the optional boundary, have them start registering at St. James, and instead of moving everybody over in the optional boundary, say those in the optional boundary from like 2020 till present move over, and everybody before 2020 can remain at St. Anne's? Because for myself, my daughter will have 2 years left at St. Anne's at that point of 2022. I strongly do not want to move my child in 2022 with also her special stuff set up. Like, is there any way that this can be compromised?
I think we can look at, we'll certainly take that input into consideration. Thank you.
Okay, Ian, I think that's all. There's no more hands up. I think that kind of concludes that portion.
Okay, so I think we are now at the end of the public consultation meeting. So after tonight, I think I'm going to talk a little bit right now about next steps in the process. So after tonight, please note that we will continue to receive input regarding the proposal. It can be sent to the email address noted. And I think, Tony, did you have a slide that you were going to present, I think, that I think had the email address included in it? There it is. Updated information will continue to be posted to the study webpage as necessary. I should also reiterate that if possible, it would be appreciated if feedback could be submitted no later than or by April 30th. This will allow us to review it in advance of preparing a recommendation to the board. A recommendation report regarding the proposed boundary revision is scheduled to be brought to the Board of Trustees in late May. Once we have a date, we do not have a firm date right now for that meeting, but once we do have it, we will update the study webpage. Hopefully, everyone is going to the study webpage, for their information regarding the consultation process. The implementation date, I think, again, we mentioned earlier, the implementation date for the proposed revision right now is September 2022. The same date that we expect that the addition to St. James will be completed and open to welcome students. I want to thank you again for your input and your participation this evening and throughout the consultation process. Your feedback is really appreciated. As I mentioned, I think earlier, I have been doing this for a number of years, probably numbering about 24 at this point, and previously about 20 plus years with the public school board in Ottawa. And I completely understand, the frustration and the difficulty and the challenges around change. But what I will say is that, we really do, and I know I would have much rather been at the school in a bit more of an intimate setting, a less sort of structured setting as this. While I do like the virtual, virtual meetings and the convenience at times of those, I think it's a little bit more productive being in a school, looking face to face, and having more of a discussion. So I do apologize that that the process had to be virtual, but I think we've had a good discussion, and I do want to reiterate that we do understand the issues involved, and we appreciate your participation this evening. Thank you. And I think with that, I will adjourn the meeting. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.